Thank you very much, Frank, and a very pleasant good afternoon. Welcome to our gathering here. Less on women. I need some tips. Can you give me a preview of what you're going to be talking about? I thought I was old. This past September, I celebrated 51 years in this crazy business, and I feel like I'm a youngster, except he looks younger than I do. He celebrated 54, right? 54 years
Charlie Gracie
in the music industry. I know I'm old because I played Butterfly the first time around, the second time around, and again. And you know, the weird thing, let's see, I sold the station at the end of '98, and one of the last shows that I did from a music standpoint, guess who I played.
Thank you.
And not only was it an oldie, but he's going strong now as much, if not better than ever before. Congratulations on a phenomenal career. 54 years. That's just a little bit better than 47 years of marriage overall, but I'm sure the marriage part, as a matter of fact, that we were just talking, he was over in London, I guess about a couple of months ago, whenever. Jerry.
In September.
In September, okay, well, more than a couple of, see how memory goes when you get old?
Yeah.
But in
That's
September,
the second thing that goes.
thankfully, you're having fun. You don't know why, but you're having fun. But anyway, Jerry went over to he and his wife went over to take their daughter to go to one of the universities there. She's going to be there for a year. And what town were you in at the time?
I was in Bath, and you were in what, Chippenham?
Chippenham.
So
And
he's in Bath.
we were trying to.
He
I couldn't
opens up
find him.
a paper or sees a poster or something like that, and he's appearing literally, a stone's throw away, and has been doing that for 50 some years at least. But what a great career. We'll have to have you up as a guest speaker, and you can kind of tell us about over 50 years in the music industry.
Need about 6 hours to get everything.
That's okay. We have it, and people love to stay. At any rate,
Tell us all about payola.
now the good thing about
Moving right along.
I tell you, the good thing about Charlie is that wasn't necessary. His sound was so phenomenal, the people played it. In fact, I was talking to somebody just the other day about that. The one thing I was talking with Jerry about it. I said, one thing I hated way back was the payola thing. And I didn't begrudge the guys that took it. I personally didn't want to, but that's beside the point. The thing that bothered me about it was that there were guys, talented young men, young women, who couldn't get arrested with their record because somebody wasn't, putting the bucks out. And yet, sometimes some people who might have been less talented, but because the dollars were there, the play was done, and all of us know in the industry how many people had what they call turntable hits. Didn't sell a penny, but the people listening thought it was selling, and therefore, eventually they started buying, and it became a hit. So that, but anyway, his music was just automatically get into you. What was that back? You formed the backbeat with a guitar, didn't you?
Well,
Isn't that the Gracie sound, which was the forerunner of rock and roll at the time?
well, the only thing I can say is that when I met Paul McCartney a few years ago, I'm sorry, I said when I met Paul McCartney a few years ago, not knowing that I ever impressed anybody in my life.
Come here, people can't hear you. I know I can. Now this won't come all the way there, so come up here.
You are? Thanks for lowering the mic. My ambition in life is to be 6'2". I'm still trying. It's a funny thing when you're a kid coming out of South Philadelphia. You come from a poor working class family. My father worked at a place called John B. Stetson Hat Company. Steaming hot water for 30 years. Hell, you talk about purgatory, I think that was it. And when I was 10 years old, my father and I took a walk down the South Street. He was going to buy himself a suit. This is how I got the show business. He said, I was the first of 3 sons. And he said, Charlie, the hell with the suit. He says, pick an instrument out in one of the pawn shops. He said, make something of yourself. I said, okay, Dad, about a nice trumpet like Harry James. He said, nice, get a guitar. It'll be a one-man band. In 1946, nobody played the guitar.
That's right, that's true.
That I knew of. I'm sure they were great guitarists. And that's how my career started. Now, of course, we all suffer for our vocation, our trade. And I, for many years, worked around, I worked nightclubs at night and went to school during the day. For 15 cents on the trackless trolley.
Yeah.
Nobody shot you in those days.
That's right.
It's nice. You can go any place you want. And finally, after recording, I got a recording contract in 1951 from a fellow called Graham Prince, who was from Charlotte, North Carolina. Yo.
No.
And he had a record company in New York called Cadillac Records. And I think I was one of the first of maybe a handful of teenage recording artists in the country. Made my first recording, went on the old Bob Horn bandstand, and recorded for 4 or 5 or 6 years with no great success. And finally I went with Cameo Records, a fellow named Bernie Lowe, everybody knows who Bernie was. And he was looking for a tall, sexy Elvis Presley guy. I guess he couldn't find him, so he wound up with me. And we went into the studio December of '56, and by March of 1957, we had not only a hit record, but a #1 hit. Knocked a guy by the name of Elvis out of the box and took #1 position.
Wow.
He went to Las Vegas, and I went to Wildwood. I've been there ever since. But it's been a great career. But to get back to the point that you were making, when I first went over to Europe, I was only the second American to bring rock and roll to that continent. Billy Early in the Comets was before me. But I was always a solo act. I worked what they call the variety theater. You know, I'd follow like song and dance teams, seals, dogs, and they'd close the show. You know. So consequently, when I went there, it was a big deal because I was hot. When you're hot, you're hot. When you're not, you make a living. And took that country by storm. And unbeknownst to me, there were people in the audience. I was like 20, 21 years old. And the people that came up after me were like 15 or 16, like Paul McCartney, the Rolling Stones, Cliff Richard, on and on and on. And finally, when I met Paul, to get back to the original point that you made, that he said to me, Charlie, he says, I'll never forget Guitar Boogie. Now there's a guy that made over $1 billion and is renowned throughout the world and remembers Charlie Gracie from South Philadelphia, the way I played the guitar, because there weren't too many guitar players around. Maybe Chuck Berry and I, the rest only strummed, you know, like Bill Haley and Elvis. And, you know, when you're at that point in your career and your life, you don't think you're impressing anybody because you're so tickled to death to be there. You think, I'm this kid from South Philly, man, you know. He asked my mother for a quarter once, you know, this week got to pay the insurance man. You know what I mean? When you smell chicken cooking, he said, who's sick? I mean, that's exactly. I was born in 1936, right in the middle of the Depression. No money. We didn't have a bathroom in the house in South Philly. A toilet. We had the outhouse. What we call a bucket.
House.
Thank you very much, Bill. It's not even Italian. You know, but I understand you're married to an Italian. Just a bit of a happy Bill. And, you know, I mean, more than all, to imagine a person like that, with all the accolades he's had, and all the millions and billions of dollars he's made to remember Charlie Gracie. I mean, that's phenomenal. So all I can say is God has been very good to me. I never got rich, but I met wonderful people like you folks here. My old buddy Hyatt, and I can go back. We used to sit at the HAT till 2 in the morning, remember when I first got started, when you got started. And I have wonderful memories of the people I grew up with here in town. And all the guys have been good to me. At Harris, all the guys from the 950 Club. I mean, I have no complaints. I made a wonderful living. I never got rich. I came close. But, you know, money's not everything. I have a wonderful wife of 47 years. I have 2 great kids. We live in a nice home. I mean, you know, money is not everything. Believe me when I tell you that. And I'm still alive. I'll be 69 years old in May, and I'm happy to be here.
Yay!
All right, you have your health. You have your health.
Thank you very much, Charlie. Phenomenal career and still going strong.